Hello everyone, we are back with the leadership series at Happiest Minds around generative AI. Today we are going to talk about generative AI and how it is being rapidly accepted in the market. The technology itself has been evolving rapidly and we have seen a huge buy-in from the leaders in the market. However, there are a lot of concerns around generative AI and a lot of gray areas that needs to be tackled. Today we have Sridhar Mantha with us. He's the CEO of Generative AI Business Services at Happiest Minds, and he's going to address some of those concerns and how we can take care of those concerns. So there has been a lot of ethical ambiguity around the usage of generative AI. Sridhar, tell us, how can we avoid this and how can we move past this concern?
Sure. We need to see this problem at two levels, right? Especially when a single user is using the application, the generative AI-based application, be it image generation or the individual or the user getting answers, what kind of ethical ambiguity exists in that sphere so that the user gets the right kind of answers and not immoral or unethical kind of answers. This is fundamentally the responsibility of the large language model developers as well as the application developers also. And we do have enough mechanisms at this point in time. The LLM developers themselves take care of many of these ethical dilemmas and the problems, as well as application developers put in the guardrails, which is somewhat being addressed. I believe the bigger problem is how this technology is going to have the ethical implications on the broader society, be it the total number of jobs that can vanish tomorrow or certain segments of the society potentially can become jobless. Is this technology truly going to benefit everybody? So that ethical ambiguity is going to be a difficult question for us to answer, because anytime a new technology comes, we as a society go through the same problem. However, with generative AI, first time, we do have the problem coming into the knowledge worker space, because in 1900s when automation came, the factory workers faced similar kind of problem. So I do strongly believe that as a society we'll figure out. Maybe some people may have to reskill themselves as with any new technology that comes, and surely with the help of the leaders and the government, we can put the boundaries around this.
So how can we go past that bias from entering our systems?
So the biases always happen with the large language models, and it fundamentally happens because of two reasons. Because the kind of content against which an LLM is or any generative AI model is being trained, be it images sometimes also, because the text actually is generated by human beings. So for example, let us say for discussion's sake, if I'm creating a large language model based on Reddit conversations, of course there are inherently a lot of biases of the individuals who wrote all the text, the comments and all kinds of things in Reddit, right? So if I use that as my source information to create LLM, naturally LLM is going to have a bias. So now we can always have certain mechanisms to try to reduce the bias, in the sense that we can curate the text content against which I'm actually training a model. Even if the model still has bias, I can put the countermeasures. However, we need to be really careful about not putting way too much countermeasures within the model. In that case, what happens is the pendulum can swing completely to the other side. I believe many of us have seen that with the latest Google Gemini generating the images and some of the answers. So the large language model or the generative AI model developers need to find the right balance so that after curating the input data also, whatever biases inherently are still left in the model, to what degree countermeasures we put so that it actually stays in the middle as opposed to be swinging to the other extreme in certain cases.
With generative AI, we have heard about a lot of data privacy and security concerns. How do we tackle them?
Anytime we are talking about the internet, from that day onwards, these two questions constantly are coming up, right? And we haven't even solved these two concerns before generative AI came onto the scene, right? One can argue saying that like with the generative AI, these concerns are magnified a little bit more, but I do strongly believe that we constantly are fighting the battle, because as individual users, we are also willing to sacrifice some of our privacy, right? In the sense that like if I want a good product recommendations when I go into an e-commerce site, they're tracking my behavior between multiple sessions. I'm willing to let them do it. It could be my voice recognition, right, by Alexa kind of devices. So as individuals, we are willing to get certain convenience by let go of certain privacy. Now, what is the right balance here and what kind of protections that exist so that I lose little privacy but I get a lot of convenience from the software and the tools and generative AI. So with that as a backdrop, of course, there are concerns with the new technology that is coming on the scene. However, there are a lot of other solutions that are also emerging to protect it, in the sense that be it the hyperscalers hosting large language models, they are actually putting all kinds of measures so that my data will not be used for further training. Or I do have an option of going with open source large language models and hosting them myself or ourselves, or the enterprise level, we can host them so that all the data that goes into generative AI models will be staying within my own firewall and it never goes out. But this is something as an industry we are solving it and will continue to solve it.
Now we talk about the most important term, hallucination, which has come into the play with regards to generative AI. What is it and how do we avoid it?
Hallucinations is of course, very interesting and fun concept. It used to be much worse with the early generations of large language models, in the sense that anytime we are getting the first generation of large language models or the second generation of large language models, since the LLMs fundamentally work on the premise that start with one word, guess what the next word is going to be based on the probability. Guess what the third word is going to be. Somehow this entire guessing process is creating coherent sentences. But still, based on the question I asked and the answers, sometimes the answers may have self-contradictions. Maybe the hallucination reason could be the kind of training data it got, because the data itself has contradictions. However, we are actually not seeing that as such a big problem with the current generation of text models. The reason for that is the prompt engineering, or the prompts evolved so much where actually I can ground the LLM to the truth up to a certain extent by passing the context. So the typical enterprise scenarios where I do have my own custom documents and I want to converse against it, so naturally the whole problem of RAG itself will reduce the hallucinations reasonably well. That being said, when the other kinds of generative AI models are coming, once again hallucinations are becoming a very big problem. I'm sure many of you would have seen some of the videos of Sora, right, where from the text prompt, Sora is able to generate videos, and suddenly the laws of physics are not there properly within the videos that it generated. Of course, hallucinations will continue to be a problem, but when it comes to the text, they're reduced a lot at this point in time. When it comes to the image generation or video generation, they'll be there, but I'm sure the second, third generation of the models will address it even better.
A lot of leaders in the market are also concerned about implementing generative AI and the cost implications of that. How do we address that concern?
So in the software development, generally there's a cost associated with anything that we are building. However, we do have the other technologies at this point in time that make software development and solution deployment, be it with generative AI or other kind of solutions, also much simpler and cheaper. Of course, the cloud technologies exist even in the context of generative AI also, in the sense that today with a single API call, I can actually consume a trillion parameters plus kind of model that is running on a massive NVIDIA GPU cluster by just paying few pennies, right? So with the advent of the cloud technology and SaaS solutions, if I want to use vector database, I don't have to worry about how do I actually install within the enterprise context. So the other technologies that were existing previously are also actually making the cost of implementation of the generative AI solutions also much cheaper. So we still can actually implement a quick solution within 2 days, a reasonably production quality solution in 3 months, and a very complicated generative AI solution in 6 months.
And last but not the least, the generative AI space has been evolving rapidly and changing at an accelerated rate. How do we combat that concerns with respect to business goals and outcomes?
The technology has been always changing, and now one can argue saying that like the cell phone technology, for example, probably is the previous one we have seen, right? So these technologies change very rapidly, and anytime we are trying to be early adopters, we always run into the risk of, hey, what is going to happen once I actually implement this particular solution, right? And from that point of view, we can always rely upon the SaaS solutions, hyperscalers, what they're providing, right? So that the underlying technology can evolve and still our applications can actually function much better. So in software engineering, every problem can be solved by introducing another layer, right? That's what we always believe in, so that even if the layers below are also evolving, my higher layers can always function properly. So as an application developers, as well as the hyperscale providers, everybody is ensuring that there is always backward compatibility, so that way with the technology getting better, our applications get better, and of course there'll be always better ways to implement as we go down this path, and we can keep adopting them.
Thank you so much, Sridhar, for addressing all these questions that a lot of us have in our heads, and also advising on the right path to take forward to address these concerns. Thank you so much. We'll be back with another episode. Stay tuned.